objective to know about in the world, per se. So communications as a course can highlight the need of making sure you know how to search for a job, you know how to find a job, and then you retain one after your graduation. Luckily for you as healthcare providers in the future, or a healthcare support staff, it's not going to be as difficult, hopefully, but you still need to have the skills and the set up to make sure that you're successful in the future. As you already know, you're probably in school, so you know what you want to do after you graduate, but I think part of that is being realistic to make sure that you have the ability to live and to live properly. But another component of this is making sure that you're doing something that you enjoy long term, and that you want to stick with for an extended period. You have to kind of plan things out and not be so sporadic in regards to your decision making. So some of the basics of what businesses or anyone with a role will think is essential when looking for a job is, of course, basic math skills, problem solving, critical thinking. I would say that's probably one of the more important ones. Verbal communication as you're studying within this course, organizational skills, and teamwork. Teamwork is really key. It's something that's really played out into focus, especially in larger groups. And if you don't work well as a team, then that essentially means that you're not going to be successful in your role. So that's really important. Education is usually required. There's some avenues that you can go about that. A lot of people go in the military to help out with this component, 2-year college, 4-year college, vocational and technical schools, and then onward to graduate and doctorate level programs. But this all depends on what your goals are, and they should facilitate why you're going to school and what your outcome wants to be post-graduation. We're doing this right now. I think it's critical. Hopefully it will help you building a resume, making sure you do it the right way. Take concentration on this and have it ready to go so you have a solid piece of work for when you graduate. I want you to be able to make a few adjustments and be able to really have something ready to go if you find a job that you're interested in. So what to include in the resume, we've already really talked about in some components, and we've talked about best practices, but they're super important for those of you that might not have built a resume before. We'll do any of the things that are included in this information. You don't want to put political or religious affiliation, personal information, and pictures of yourself. Some people do this at times, but I don't think it's very successful, especially in the professional world. You have accounts like LinkedIn. I think that's really helpful. But make sure you use certain accounts just for purposes that they're meant for. Don't use your LinkedIn account like a Facebook. Make sure it's done the right way and things are ideal in regards to their setup. So emphasize some of the more important components. Use strong action verbs. When you write out information, you can see based on my CV that I submitted some information that I was given and how I adjusted it, and you can take that information and do what you will with it, but come up with a certain solution that can help you be successful. Here's some of the things about this resume, and you can pause this to take a look and read into more detail. But when you look at this resume, it does not look very successful because, for one, it's not set up as a professional resume. It looks a little like a joke, when you look at it to begin with, especially with the picture up on the right-hand corner and some of the information listed. But there's some misspellings. The summary is really kind of critical in regards to skills that might be okay in the personal level, but not professional. This is not an effective resume whatsoever. I think this is something that looks decent in regards to its structure. It's laid out right. When you pull up the CV on your computer, it's fresh. It looks clean. It's not information that you're going to get bored with or have difficulty finding. Employment pieces or skills and expertise. Everything's laid out in the way that it should be. So I'm happy that Susie crafted that in a proper way. How about completing the job application? You have to do this most of the time online. Usually don't go in person to do this as you used to back about 20 years ago, but Make sure when you're filling out online, you're doing it in the correct manner. You don't want to do it quickly. You want to make sure it coincides with the resume that you have in hand. It's really important to make sure that things flow and there's not any red flags for individuals that are looking through things. And you have to realize in the market that we have today, usually computers look at your CV at the beginning and see if you meet certain requirements before it's pushed to an HR representative or the hiring manager. So the first thing that your information is going to come in contact with is a computer, and you want to make sure things line up, because if it doesn't, it'll be thrown out and you won't even make it to the next step. So that's really important. So how do you act during the interview? This is really key. I think a lot of people do the wrong things. A lot of people are really nervous during the interview, and rightfully so. It's your future, and you want to make sure that you're set up for success, but you want to make sure that things are highlighted in an effective way and that you are able to formulate your words to be efficient and concise and not overtalk. Some of the things that I see in interviews, people that prepare too much overtalk, and people that don't prepare enough, know nothing about the company they're applying towards. So make sure you have that middle ground and you do the things that are listed on the slide to ensure that people think that you're ready for the role and that you're ready for success-driven practice in the future. Another thing I would highlight is take few notes. I think that's really important. Body language we've already talked about. Thinking positive will always help you in the long run, because if you think positive, you're going to most of the time act positive. And then relating to the interview, you have to sell yourself to the interviewer. If they don't like you, if they don't think you're a good fit, if you're not displaying the culture that they want within the organization, you're not going to make it. This is really hard to see, but if you pause it, hopefully you can take a glance at it. But it's really highlighting preparing for the interview. And there's no simple solution on how to do this. It's done in a way that's best for you. Some people don't need to prepare as much as others. I feel like at times I do and at times I don't. So you want to make sure that you're doing what's best for you in this stage. I would say for most people they need to prepare at least a few hours. But in general, I would make sure that you're ready to go and you're comfortable with what you have ready. So make sure, of course, you look decent when you go to the interview. You want to dress up. I don't care what interview it's for. If you walk in with a suit and tie on, you're usually going to be taken more seriously than someone that walks in with slacks. So make sure things are ready to go. Make sure you have your outfit picked out, and make sure that you're in line to do what's best for the company. So if you're interviewing, of course, for a dental hygiene job, my recommendation would be to dress nice. I wouldn't walk in with scrubs on, but it just depends on the environment that you're in. So make sure you judge that in the right way. Participate in mock interviews. I think that's great. You can do it with your colleagues or, of course, family members. Take time to do it to make sure you sound the way you think you do, because a lot of times when you say things, it could be interpreted differently than you thought it would be. So you want to make sure that it aligns with your thinking process and that you're ready to go. This is a really interesting graphic, what you wish you knew before your job interview. I would take time to read this. Some of the statistics I thought was interesting. The way we dress, act, and walk through the door. People concentrate on that, but take a look. Take a look at kind of the slide and see what your thoughts are on it. What are the top 10 most common mistakes during the interview? I thought that was interesting. First one is failing to ask for the job. A lot of people go through an interview and don't even highlight why they're there or what they want. And the most common tips about interviewing and most questions that are most likely to be asked. Of course, everyone asks, tell me about yourself. So take a look at this too, and I think this will be helpful for your future. I would save the slide as you're going through a process in the future after you graduate, and hopefully it'll help you in the long run. Always have an interview follow-up, so always send a thank you memo to the people that interviewed you. You want to make sure that you have your information outlined and that you say you're appreciative of the process. If you're not interested after the interview, you want to make sure that's outlined as well. But I think it's essential for you to reach out and at least touch base, because follow-ups are something that's looked at in positive ways. Social media is a big thing, especially nowadays. Make sure you're putting appropriate things on there, because I'm not saying they're allowed to be looked at, but at times it can be. And I like this think quotation: is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? Make sure you think before you act in regards to your process. Social media can be used in an effective way. I think LinkedIn is the only appropriate one. Be careful with social media and work-related incidents. I think there should be a very, very key and critical thought process when posting and making sure that things are appropriate in the time and piece and way it's communicated. And that's all I want to say about that. I think there's a lot that I could say, but I leave it up to you to make sure that you're acting in a way that's professional and in a way that a company would want to hire you to present them. So, as you can tell, people take it seriously. When you post things that are inappropriate, they can be held accountable for such actions. So keep that in mind. How do you keep a job? Let me tell you that one thing: show up, be on time. A lot of people don't do this. I encounter this a lot in my current role. If you're not showing up to the job, then you're not going to keep it very long. And all these other attributes here highlight the need for you to continue to do an effective job in your current environment. Great books really help you in regards to being successful, especially in leadership components. But make sure you read and do what's best for you in regards to keeping your motivation high and performing at a high level. Understanding the organizational structure is also key and critical. This is something that you should do quite often. Make sure you know who's in roles so you can connect with them and be successful. Because a lot of times you have to relay information, or you have to get approval before moving forward with certain projects. I'm going to talk about workplace etiquette. I think it's really important to practice in a way that you're presenting yourself in a positive manner, and you're also doing the same for your organization, because you represent the organization when you're at work, and you should keep that in mind. There's a lot that can be said about this, but I think it's important for you to focus and do what you're there to do rather than doing things outside the plethora of your responsibility. There's a lot of different slides in here that I would consider looking at. This was a slideshow based on the Tennessee work environment, so you could take a look at the state of Tennessee and some different features about them. Don't feel like it's certainly applicable to our situation, but it's interesting to know. If you have any questions or need any help, feel free to reach out. Happy to walk you through everything. And make sure you watch the videos in this week's segments. I think they're really important for us to understand and to learn. And I would appreciate any feedback that you might have for improvement. And on top of that, take advantage of the time that you have to read about looking for a job and to read about how to craft a perfect CV. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks so much, and I hope you all have a successful and encouraging week.